Good evening. I accidentally scheduled this for tomorrow night, and it was meant to be tonight. So, hopefully, we get some of our friendly faces here. So, I'm just going to give it a minute or two for people to find us. Because this time I'd like to start with Sebastian. And I have a lot more to say. A lot more than I've had to say for a while, I guess. You could put it that way. So, I wanted to start tonight with, well, first of all, the theme for tonight is what's coming next for some of these cases. But I first wanted to start, and I've done this before, but more people have been visiting the channel, so I think it might be worthy of doing it again. Not that I really want to, per se. I'm going to play a little hypothetical game of what would you do? Picture this, imagine this, okay? And so I am going to just walk through if I woke up as Katie says she woke up on February 26th. And I'm going to sprinkle in my own experience with her alleged experience, because we've heard what she did so many times, over and over. And we've heard what Chris allegedly did over and over and over again. And we've heard what Seth has done. So I am going to put myself in their shoes the best I can and try to parallel this with my life. And in your mind, not everybody that might watch this has ever had a child, and that's okay. And on some level, you could probably replace that with just somebody incredibly important to you. But for anybody who's ever been a parent or is now a grandparent, you were a parent at some point, so you can, on some level, go there. And in my case, I can go there more than most. So that's kind of what I would like to start with, because, well, we'll get to the because later. Because I replay this over and over and over again. Like I replay things from my own life over and over again. And it doesn't make sense to me. And in the case of Katie, I may never be able to understand if she is entirely innocent. I will never understand her behavior. So I'm asleep and I wake up to do my normal routine with my child, to get them ready for the day and out the door and off to school so I can go to work. I get up. I typically would do something for me, coffee, water, something like that. I would fast forward to the point where I'm going to then wake up my child so they can get themselves going. Evening, Miss Melody. And I go to open that door and I see an empty bed. I'm not going to be alarmed because my child could have gotten up out of bed and gotten in the shower. Probably not making something to eat because in Katie's house, just as if I was waking up my own teenager, you go by the kitchen. So I think I would notice the kitchen more if someone was in the kitchen than if somebody was in the bathroom with the door closed, maybe getting ready. It might take me a little bit in the morning to process that the doors closed, the shower might be on. Bed's empty. So I would probably be amazed that my teenager got up by themselves. I would go to the kitchen, just double check. Maybe I missed him in a corner. Nope, not there. Okay. So the next logical place, I suppose, would be the bathroom, and not in the bathroom. And then I would look around the entire house, of course. And I would imagine as I start getting to the rooms last that I know my child doesn't really ever go to, I would probably have a tiny sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I probably wouldn't be able to explain it. And then I would second guess myself. I'm losing it. No, they're here. They're here. You're losing it. At this point, I'm probably really yelling their name really loud, screaming it, flying back around the house again. Once I have deduced they're not in the house, I'm going to open the front door. I'm going to look outside. And I'm going to run to the backyard. I'm going to probably run around my house. And I'm going to scream their name. And I'm probably going to be looking up and down the street, left, right, across, screaming their name. And at this point, the terror will begin to set in. And I probably am going to run back in the house at that point and grab my phone. And I'm going to grab my phone and I'm going to get in my car with my phone and I'm going to call 911 while I'm looking up and down my block over and over again. And then I'm going to leave my block because I'm going to start looking at every other block, working my way out. The path to their school, whatever that may be, anywhere they know they'd go, I'm going to start driving. And I'm going to be crying. I'm going to be terrified while I'm on the phone with 911. And I'm going to yell at them to get their asses over to my house because my son is missing. And then I have looked all over my house more than once. I have looked outside my house and I have looked all over my neighborhood and I cannot find my child. And I'm going to tell them, you don't understand. My child doesn't just leave. You don't understand. This is important because my son is also autistic. I saw my kid's shoes by the door. My son doesn't leave without his shoes on. Somebody has to get here and help me find my son right now. And I'm going to let the 911 operator sit on the phone with me while I continue searching, because I'm not going to go back to my house until they're there. And when law enforcement eventually gets there, I'm going to repeat this situation all over again. I'm going to tell them everything I just did. I'm going to tell them why they don't understand that this is my kid, that my kid does not do this. My kid has never ran away. My kid doesn't like to go outside without their shoes on. What are you doing here talking to me? You should be out finding my kid right now. Law enforcement might say, is there someone that can come and be with you? Because they don't want you to usually be going through a crisis alone. And they might want you to stay home while they're out searching. Because in Sebastian's case, they immediately deployed people to start searching. And once I know that they've left the house and I have to do what they said to do, and I imagine they would leave an officer behind with me, I would call the father of my child and I would be screaming and crying. And I have a terrible, terrible, horrific past with the father of my teenager. That's my true life experience. So the last thing on earth I would ever want to do is to look like a bad mom, to look like I made a mistake, that I lost our child. Just don't even want to have to talk to him. But he's the first person I would call. And his current wife might answer. And I would yell and I would scream to put him on the phone. You don't understand. He's gone. He's gone. He's gone. He's gone. He's gone. What do you mean he's gone? He's gone. He's like not here. He's not in the house. The police are looking for him. I don't know what to do. You need to get your ass over here now. Even if they were at work, you don't understand. Seth's son is missing right now. You need to get him now. If their father let me off the phone because they were racing over, which is what Seth did when he found out, my next call would be to my current husband to explain the terror I'm in. And if my husband loved me, my husband would not care about work, leaving the job site early, the long drive it would take to get home. Excuse me. Haven't coughed like all day, and now here we go. And they would come flying home because they love me and because they love my son. is it possible that my husband would call his mom if he left me? I mean, he probably would get off the phone to tell his employer, hey, I'm leaving. Excuse me. But he would just go. And granted, Chris's mom lived closer. I would be terrorized, hysterical. Nothing anybody that showed up at that house said would be good enough for me. Nothing they did would be able to be good enough for me if they were not walking my child through that front door. I would not be able to sleep or eat. And if law enforcement forced me to stay in my house in the beginning for a few days because they were everywhere with all of their resources and they wanted me home in case he walked in the door, and I had no choice but to do that, I would be crawling in my own skin. And when they would go in front of a bank of news cameras and microphones after such a small amount of time has passed, and they tell the world that they are scaling back the search for my child, that is when World War I drops. There is no chance in hell that I would accept law enforcement scaling back their search for my child. Nothing in the world trumps my child. So the moment law enforcement said that, I would be the most enraged woman on the front lawn of the sheriff's department every single day with a big sign with my kid's face on it. And I would have every news outlet in front of that sheriff's department videoing me yelling because law enforcement decided to stop looking for my kid. I couldn't leave the state. I couldn't leave the town. No, never, never. I couldn't accept what law enforcement told me. I don't like Tony Mathis at all. Okay. And I have really mixed feelings with Seth based on his choices. I think they suck, but I'm not his mother. But one thing that's true is that I see the one thing he does reiterate, which is genuine for the parent of a missing child, is he does not accept that law enforcement gave up on his kid. Doesn't accept it. Chris and Katie, they accepted it. They accepted it. They moved on with their lives. Seth did not. So while I know there's a lot of people out there that are trying to make Seth's really bad choices a reason to doubt him and what he did to his son I have absolutely zero belief in my mind that he had anything to do with what happened to Sebastian. And that right there, that behavior right there, that even though he's making all these bad moves with these people that he shouldn't be around, okay, one thing does remain true. He does not believe law enforcement is doing enough. He does not believe that they are doing their best, and he believes that they have given up on him. And it's true, in my opinion. It is true, in my opinion, now. And so, all of that being said, I don't believe that Katie and Chris are innocent because they accepted it. They accepted, put yourself in the shoes of the most important human being in your life. Vanished. Whoever that most important person is, they vanished. And law enforcement so quickly said, we're scaling back our efforts. And then you don't hear from them for months. They don't do anything. They don't put your baby's face out there. They don't talk about your child. They don't remind the public about your child. You're on your own, kid. That's what they do. And as a human being, let alone a mother, there is no way in my heart that you can be an innocent mother and accept that defeat. Ginger girl, you are spot on. Spot on. How quickly they stopped looking in this case is, it's just, even if, okay, it was looking for someone that they believe was deceased, it just does not make sense to me. It doesn't. Right, Dolores. You'd be online, but not just online. You would be everywhere. Everywhere. Just everywhere. We're not talking about years. We're talking about months. Months. How is it that the only reason we know Katie's face is from a couple of very small early on interviews, and then the Nancy Grace, I mean, everybody calls it the hostage video because she might as well have been looking like they were both looking like they were being taken hostage, because they didn't know how to prepare for something like that. I have my members knew this was coming. I'm going to try this tonight, and we'll see how it goes. I don't want this to turn into a poop show, but I am going to allow, if anybody wanted to come on and discuss any of these cases as we're going along. I have pinned a link in the comments, and you are welcome to join. You do not have to use your real name. Frankly, it's YouTube. Who would? And you don't have to show your face. But I just wanted to extend that invitation. At this point, I feel like I have a really good crowd that isn't going to turn this into something messy. So I'm not committing to anything yet, but I wanted to at least put the opportunity out there because some of you, I know it's hard to get out everything you're thinking and you've been feeling, and you try to rush it out in a comment, and that can be difficult. I've been on the other end of that, watching a stream, and I'm like, da, 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 I have so many feelings about this, So you're always welcome to do that. And if you're not comfortable with that, you can always email me. Ginger, there was never a reason to stop looking. They can investigate and they can look at the same exact time. They can do both. They chose not to do both. It was a decision. I agree, Dolores. They seem less upset than some people who have lost a pet. It's like from the start, they were like, oh, well, Sebastian just poof, disappeared. And that's so true. It's so true. It is like, it's just infuriating to see that. And it's just the whole thing is heartbreaking because it really makes me upset about the people. Did none of you have, and hey, look, I'm not trying to judge because I keep a small circle. I keep a very small circle in life. But did you guys have no one in your circle that was coming out there for you? Because the strangers that came out for you, they were kicked to the curb. And I think as far as Duchess goes, I think she reached out to them to talk to them, to share the information about Sebastian. And I can't recall if it was, I believe it wasn't actually planned that they were going to come on. I believe she had said, I'm going to share their information. You're always welcome to join. And I think it was one of those things that then later became a pattern where like Chris would listen. And when Chris would feel comfortable enough that he had a platform that was going to be safe to talk in, he would then want to talk. And that is what I believe happened there. But she is, almost exclusively dedicated to the missing. And it did take a while to be on the local news, which is very surprising because, at least in my, where I am at, the local news, and people like to knock local news, but your local news is going to get your kid's face in front of the first people that are more likely to see your child if they really left locally. And, they're going to be the eyes, the ears. So your local and regional news is a really good thing. And just mind-blowing that like within the first 2 days, all three parents weren't sitting down with Nick Barris to talk about it. And he has continued to be the primary news source that, shares information about Sebastian. And what's interesting to me was Tony sent that link for, let's see, their recent voting efforts. And interestingly enough, that is channel 2. That is not Nick Bear's channel, even though he has been covering Sebastian diligently from the beginning. I think that's just blows my mind. I would think Nick would welcome the opportunity to sit down with Seth, and would have at any point in time. And as far as I'm aware of, he has not sat with Nick and done an interview. I am gonna. I am going to play the clip because it's a 30-second clip from the news. I am going to. Yeah. What is going on here? There we go. Okay. I am going to play it really quick because some may not have seen it. But there was a lot of flack about in here the statement about a recovery effort.
On his missing son, 15-year-old Sebastian Rogers disappeared nearly 5 months ago, and his father, Seth, is still searching. Good evening and welcome to News 2 at 6. I'm Bob Mueller.
And I'm Haley Wilgus. Sebastian's father told News 2's Caitlin Quisenberry they're operating this like a recovery effort, even though he believes Sebastian is still alive.
Memorial Park was one of the first places Seth Rogers tells me he searched for his son, Sebastian. He says this place is Sebastian's favorite. Almost 2 months ago, this bridge was lit up in Sebastian's favorite color, green, in hopes of his safe return home. At that time, he had been missing for 2 months. Today, the search continues, almost 5 months later.
People think that we're not searching anymore. Well, they can think whatever they want. Our searches are private.
Seth tells me after a herniated disc surgery, it is back to boots on the ground. He says today, over 40 searchers, vetted by his private investigator, will be eliminating locations Sebastian could be in Middle Tennessee.
Now,
The video that took place on the boat, it says at the top, because I know not everybody actually is watching this screen, it says at the top that it's courtesy of Tony Mathis. So Tony was the one who videoed or paid for or must have controlled or distributed the video of Seth on the actual boat. Just to be clear, it was not filmed by WKRN.
I don't really have much stopping me from getting out there and doing what I need to do.
There's a refocus. We're trying to zero in on more specific information that we are gathering.
Seth tells me his search parties have become invite only due to chaos at previous searches.
They're private because we learned last time You know, we had people following my searchers around that were just handing out flyers, and it doesn't bode well for people who are trying to help to be put into hostile situations.
But he says the goal today is not to find Sebastian.
The search that we're doing today is a recovery effort, and I'm praying that we don't find him.
Seth says he believes his son is alive, but he added some people still don't know Sebastian is missing.
We have to continue to hand out flyers until everybody knows.
Seth and Tony tell me they have one unanswered question for the Sumner County Sheriff's Office.
We think it's a valid question. We think it's a fair question. And that question is, are you any closer today to finding Sebastian Rogers than you were February 26th?
And for Seth, the answer to that question is no.
My son's not here, so we're nowhere closer.
If you have seen Sebastian or have information about his whereabouts, call the Sumner County Sheriff's Office or the TBI. Those numbers are listed on our website, WKRN.com.
Okay. After the trash truck video, Seth started saying some not very flattering things about Nick. I have no idea what his problem is with Nick. Nick seems to really want Sebastian found. I agree. Well, let me say this. When the video of the flashlights occurred, and in the beginning, before the crew that Seth is now affiliated with came along, Seth was told by law enforcement that that was trash trucks. And he believed that. You could just tell wholeheartedly. And maybe he had feelings about that, maybe he had feelings about, that it was released. But at this stage in the game, I think that Seth has shared every iota of information that he's received to date publicly, shy of the CPS reports. And in the case of the CPS reports, I believe he has shared that with Tony. I believe there's a chance he also shared the contents of that with Michaela while they were in their friendship, and he thought it was going to be more. I believe that there's a few people that he may have confided in, maybe even family, as to the contents, of the CPS reports. But Nick is a respected local news outlet, any reporter, and it blows my mind that the three of them together, and that I've always had a problem with the fact that they couldn't band together, because I could work with the devil to find my child. I would sit next to them, and because we be united on one thing, and that is our child is missing. So nothing else would matter. You even look at elijahvue, and you think about Jody Bauer and the situation that her daughter is in right now. And I can imagine there's embarrassment, anger, shame, sadness, a myriad of feelings. And she's done 2 local news interviews. And to me, she would be in a much harder position and would want to stay away from the spotlight. But if even doing that little bit is possibly shining a light on her missing grandson, she's putting up, sucking it up and doing it. And I think, we just haven't seen this. I just have to wonder where's the circle of people that you're supposed to have in your life, even if it's few between, that you have to get yourself to a place where you have to make decisions like partnering with a stranger that was recommended to you by a YouTuber who lives in another state to be your spokesperson, who's not even a, a spokesperson. And I had previously done something. Let's see, where is it? But I do just want to go over again the criteria in Tennessee for a missing child for an Amber Alert. Okay. And it says that TBI reserves Amber Alerts for the most serious of missing children cases, in which law enforcement believes that a child is in imminent danger. In order to issue an Amber Alert, and this is Tennessee's laws, okay, every state has their own criteria. The following criteria must be met. The person is 17 years of age or younger, and the child is in imminent danger of bodily injury or death, and there is a description of the child, the abductor, or vehicle, and on a request from another state for activation, there is a direct and identified nexus to the state of Tennessee. Issuing an Amber Alert is a complex process requiring various layers of notification across Tennessee. They prioritize notifying the media, the National Weather Service, TDOT, and TBI's social media audience in an effort to quickly share information with the public at large. The TBI also works with NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, to activate the cellular telephone network, billboards, and other secondary alert notifications. And they do have some notes, such as why are Amber Alerts not issued for all children? Amber Alerts are issued for abducted children in the most serious cases that meet the specific Amber Alert criteria. Tennessee averages 500 to 600 missing children per month, many due to parental abduction or runaways. Our state averages 8 to 9 Amber Alerts a year. Overuse of Amber Alerts could result in the public becoming desensitized to alerts when they are issued. An Amber Alert is only one tool that law enforcement can use to find abducted children. Tennessee also utilizes the Endangered Child Alert and Missing Children list for missing children 17 and younger. Behind the scenes, when an Amber Alert is issued, TBI's team of special agents and analysts based in Tennessee's Fusion Center at TBI headquarters in Nashville, as well as our team in the field where the child is reported missing, work around the clock on developing leads, following leads, and sharing information with law enforcement partners in state and often out of state. We are unable to talk publicly about most of what we are doing to preserve the integrity of the investigation. The 24-hour operation continues for as long as needed based on information we are receiving. So in this case, they chose the Amber Alert over the Endangered Child Alert and the Endangered Young Adult Alert, which is the Holly Bobo Act, and the Missing Child List. So I then wanted to kind of look into how NCMEC specifically partners with law enforcement in the Amber Alert program as it relates to children with special needs. If Sebastian is found, he will go into CPS custody and not return to the parents right away. Ginger Girl, I'm not sure the state would want to take him away from family after such trauma. I think it would depend a lot on what is the contents of those CPS reports. At the moment, they're not probably being addressed because Sebastian's not around. They would be addressed if there was ever a sign of foul play. Or enough evidence to show, like a Harmony Montgomery situation where somebody decides to come forward and say what they know. And if those CPS reports are relevant enough, then they would pick, the safer home, I would imagine. But it's not out of the realm of possibility to believe that he would go into state custody briefly if they, prior to really, if he was found alive, they have to debrief him, so to speak, before I would think the parents have their opportunities to be alone with him, to have a forensic interview with him and understand what happened, and not have the parents be able to taint the story. So I don't believe they would get time alone with him if he was found by law enforcement. If a parent found him, obviously they would get time alone with him before law enforcement came along. But I would think that whatever's in the CPS reports would have to rise to a certain level for him not to be returned to somebody's care. Yeah, they would not want the parents to manipulate anything that Sebastian might say. Chris said that law enforcement contacted CPS and a file was opened when he went missing. He said this file will stay open as long as he is missing. That is what Chris said he was told. But we also know from the horse's mouth that there are other CPS files. So I don't think they're going to do anything with custody unless he comes back. And so I had previously shared in a resource video I did a while back about some special teams that are part of NCMEC. And one of them interestingly enough, when I was going through the Amber Alert program and how it ties in with NCMEC and special needs children, one of the things that they had when they said under the part about NCMEC strategies, I'll just share this, was representatives from National Autism Association, nationally recognized search experts, Team Adam consultants and staff from MCD, National Safety Director, Call Center, Family Advocacy, Outreach and Training. These representatives, such as Team Adam, they're there for these families. You don't need a Tony Mathis. You don't need a YouTuber to support you through this. They have these special teams through NCMEC if you want the help. Let me make that clear. There is help. There are advocates that this is all they do that are out there if a parent wants the genuine help, the real help of experienced people. They noted that reports of lost or missing special needs children, regardless of affliction, require elevated response, and they must be treated critically. Actions of the first responders are vital to the safe recovery of the child. Immediate response to bodies of water in the vicinity to, quote unquote, head the child off. Immediate responses to bodies of water. Now, we know they drained the pond, at least one, I thought it was two, because of the canine jumping in and attempting to contain the child in a specific area. Listening intently to the parents and caregivers, get information about the behaviors of the child, assessment of the risk factors, find out the interests of the child, such as do they like trains, heavy equipment, water, roadways? Has a child ever gone missing before? How will the child react to searchers? Will they hide? Will they run? Are they verbal or nonverbal? Will they respond to their name being called? How will they react to canines and ATVs? Who will they most likely respond? Do they need life-sustaining medication? Now, if you remember, at one point, they were playing Sebastian's favorite song really, really loud when they were searching. Absolutely. Law enforcement Ginger Girl notifies NCMEC when an Amber Alert is deployed. Now, whether or not Team Adam, there's special teams. If the teams are to come in, the parents would need to ask for them to come. But this is not the first time I've talked about this resource, and I'm sure that many others have shared it as well. And there is somebody who I believe is a relative of Seth's, some time ago reached out, or I reached out to them on Facebook, and I shared this information. But I do not believe that they ever reached out for those resources. Response and search strategies continued. This is sustained searches. That's the first thing on here. Sustained searches. Development of a search plan, incident command system, an aggressive and well-coordinated one, all available emergency personnel, law enforcement, fire, medical, other jurisdictions if needed for additional help, trained searchers, use of volunteers. Do not, lessons learned, lesson learned. Do not give up until the child is found. All caps. The case of 8-year-old R.W. of Hanover, Virginia demonstrates that these children are especially resilient and can survive many days, even in rugged terrain and inclement weather. Team Adam will deploy on cases of missing special needs children. Specialized Team Adam search personnel will also deploy to assist when appropriate. In 2011, there were 8 deployments of Team Adam, the specialized Team Adam search personnel. There were 2 recalls. The other children were found. In 2012, 12 deployments, 6 recalls, and the children were found. 2013, 6 deployments, 1 child found. Ginger Girl, I mean, it's a possibility. You might be right. Ginger Girl says maybe because Seth rejected Sebastian's diagnosis and the need to put him on prescription drugs. I have heard him talk about, I guess wanting him to not feel different, not wanting him to be treated like he wasn't able to be educated. And I did hear him say, they had his feelings about the medications. And it's obviously the autism diagnosis was new, relatively new in the grand scheme of things. And I do know that parents can often butt heads regarding medications and treatments. And I know the challenges of that. I guess my frustration is, that legitimate resources exist. And why do you continue to fight against any legitimate help, like the good help? It just seems like there was that turning point, and maybe it was frustration, but you can have a bad couple days, but at this point, like, it feels like, it's just head on, there's no turning back. And now, there's a lot of people who have a lot of thoughts about the boat. And did Tony bring his boat or pay to rent a boat to film that, to be able to show, yeah, sure, distribute to the news, but to be able to show everybody like that there's something actually happening with regards to searching. There were a lot of people that were upset about the statement about it being a recovery operation. Obviously, if you're looking in a body of water, it is a recovery. if my kid had been gone months, I don't think I could utter the word recovery. But I don't think I would not want people to search water. I would still want water search. I would still want ground penetrating radar, which if you're using ground penetrating radar, it's likely you're looking for something that's buried, which are bad outcomes. But I still would use those resources. I personally probably couldn't get the word recovery out myself, but he did say, the hope is we're not going to find him, because if it's a recovery effort, you know, um, and look, in the grand scheme of things, again, I'm not his mom. I'm not going to make his choices for him on who he cares to spend his time with and allowed to guide him. But it got the news. It got to the news. That was most important, in my opinion, is that a news outlet took the footage and did some coverage of it. Yes, and that's the other factor, Dolores, in this situation is everybody focuses on autism, and there is the chromosomal deletion, and the fluid on his brain, and if he could be bumped or hit, it potentially could be instantly fatal. Even if he was maybe running and he fell and hit his head, I would think that could potentially cause severe injury. Yeah, I mean, any news coverage is great. Any coverage that is beyond just Facebook groups and YouTube is great. And if for nothing else, having legitimate news coverage should remind law enforcement that it's not just the people on Facebook and YouTube that are caring, that they can see that this hasn't gone away. It's not over. Law enforcement is failing. Law enforcement failed when they scaled the search back. I'm judging them. Law enforcement failed because they are not keeping his face and his name and awareness about him alive. And I understand 500 to 600 missing children a year in your state, but there is zero reason that Hendersonville police, even though they aren't on the case, can't do things to spread awareness. Same for Sumner County, same for TBI. And there's zero reason that they cannot come out once a month and say something, anything. Dolores, my son has hydrocephalus and has spectrum-like behaviors. Hydrocephalus is very serious and any head injury should be avoided. And I agree, Dolores, saying that word would be the biggest gut punch. I just don't think I could personally say it. I think, hi, Dr. Sue, I agree. 1,000%. They should have a photo and they should have updates. You do not have to be on the case, assign the case. to make awareness. And with the situation with Sebastian, it has occurred to me many times that a great way to get away with foul play would be if he sustained an injury on his head, and it would be if it was difficult to determine if he caused that injury himself or not. Somebody could get away with something. I agree with Dolores. Ginger, I just, this case hits me because of my own a personal life situation. And I am sure that for you and any parent, especially a parent of a child with autism or chromosome deletion, or any special needs, that this is, just even harder to watch. So I'll just repeat that out there in case this video gets seen by somebody who is close to Seth. And if Seth needs that resource, you can reach out to Nick, and you can try to get connected with Team Adam for help. So, and just so you know, they do make reference to a few special electronic tracking devices: Project Lifesaver, LoJack, SafetyNet.com, CareTrack, and emfinders.com. And they do have training packages that they do with first responders, even over webinars. And they stress neighborhood canvassing and rapidly alerting people is vital. Time is the enemy. Amber Alert was developed after a child was abducted and quickly taken from the area in a vehicle. She was ultimately murdered. It is a voluntary partnership based on this case and a study conducted on abducted children who were murdered. 76%. Holy cow. 76% of abducted children were killed within the first 3 hours. In the first 3 hours. This has to absolutely make, Trinity Bostic, which is why I don't believe Sebastian was abducted. I don't believe that there was a stranger abduction. The Department of Justice had their recommended criteria for an Amber Alert as imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death, sufficient descriptive information about the victim and the abductor, if applicable, and Amber Alerts are managed at a state and local level. It's not useful every time. It's most effective when vehicle information is known, and that makes sense for places, especially when there is the highway signs, because if people are driving and they see those plates, silver alert, amber alert, I don't know about you, but I've been driving on the highway before. I've seen those places. And then all of a sudden, your eyes are just fixated on finding a vehicle that matches that description. It's just, like an obsessive thing. Amber Alert has taught us that rapidly engaging the public is critical. In Sebastian's case, the public was not rapidly engaged. I'm sorry, they weren't. There was, in my opinion, almost a week delay in seriously engaging the public. However, oversaturation erodes that assistance and support. Matching the proper notification tool with the support needed is critical. So they, don't want to overuse the Amber Alert criteria and the Amber Alert. But in my opinion, bare minimum, if they're a special needs child of any age, they should warrant an Amber Alert. And if they're under the age of 13, it should be an automatic Amber Alert at a bare minimum. Yes, I believe the initial response, as far as the quantity of different resources that were involved initially when he went missing, it was huge, huge, huge. Maybe the community very close by was involved, but big public awareness wasn't there. The family was not engaging the public at all initially, which led people to focus on where the parents and family members were engaging the public, which was in Riley Strain's case, just in Nashville, super close. So the parents spoke, as heartbreaking as it was watching Riley's mom. And they had a dear family friend who spoke when they couldn't speak. But they made their presence known immediately. So there was a missed opportunity, because if something did happen where Sebastian was taken on any of the highways, and people ought to stop to gas up, and while they're in the middle of their suspicious acts, people weren't looking, they weren't aware, they weren't intentionally looking. Was that intentional? Was the delayed media coverage intentional? Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty disappointing statement at that point by law enforcement when they said they were pulling back. It would be unacceptable with a child that would settle for hearing that, because then what? Then what do you do? Then you end up in a situation like Seth is in, where he's just hodgepodging together whatever, whatever he can. Isn't that what I put? I just want to open it. Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm just trying to look at a note I had on what date that was. Because he went missing. It was reported on the 26th. We know he went missing probably on the 25th. But my notes have, okay, this is craziness. Craziness. So I'm just going over some of my preliminary early on timeline notes here, which was February 25th, last known proof of life. May have taken out the garbage that evening. Video footage showed him leaving Texas Roadhouse. Contrary to belief, there were no sightings or proof of life on February 26th. Around 6:20, Chris called Sumner County Sheriff to report Sebastian missing. We do not have concrete verification as to which line he called. And I had a link because they have the sheriff's office has regular hours from 8 to 4:30. They have a 24-hour emergency communication center for non-emergency calls. We didn't know for sure if that was the number that was called. And I would have imagined those calls would be recorded. He could have called an individual person at the sheriff's department, still unclear. February 26, 11:17 a.m., it was an endangered child alert. Okay. It was an endangered child alert. So they did an endangered child alert that day. And over 200 people were dispatched to search for him. Canine teams, mounted units, helicopter crews, drones. They covered the 5-mile radius. Eric Craddock from the Sumner County Sheriff told News Channel 2, quote, obviously this one is exponentially more important being a child who does have autism, unquote. What was concerning to me about that statement was that it did align with Chris's statement about being told that the case was historical or monumental. February 27th, TBI elevated the alert to Amber Alert status, meaning that child was believed as of the 27th to be in imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death. Okay. The 29th, pond was drained, nothing found. EMA Director Ken Widener states search and rescue dogs could not pick up a scent. March 2nd, reward issued for more information, reward of $3,000. March 3rd, reward was raised to $3,500 for more information. Per the sheriff, this was an anonymous group of business owners who pledged those funds. As we now know, there was no actual money. It was a pledging of those monies. Let's see. March 3rd, Sebastian's relatives have declined to speak publicly or share details about the boy's disappearance. Understandably, there is interest in hearing from family and friends to help provide more of a personal context about Sebastian, the family said in a statement through TBI. However, we have been requested by the family to let social media know they are not in a position to speak to or be available to the media at this time. So 6 days later, family states they are not available to the media. TBI said the family is cooperating with officials in their search for Sebastian. Police said Sebastian's home has been searched at least 10 times as of March 3rd. Okay. Then I have a note that March 4th, search scaled back. Parents speak out. So they scale back the search. Then the parents decide to speak. After a week of searching, authorities announced they were scaling back the ground search for Sebastian and transitioning to an investigation. This does not diminish our commitment to finding Sebastian. This is us simply transitioning from the ground search to the investigative side. Tell me, please, who in the hell would be okay if after a week their child was missing and law enforcement stopped looking? What parent would not lose their mind? Picket. I'd be picketing outside the police department. Absolutely crazy. Law enforcement was concerned that Sebastian, going without his medication abruptly, would suffer withdrawals. I'm trying to remember. I thought, did Seth say he did or did not give him his medicine when he was at his house? Which parents do that? If they don't want their kid to have it, the other parent, one parent will be giving it to him, the other one won't. It's not good for the kid. And they're in March 5th, first interview, Katie said, I don't know why he walked out that door. The way she referred to that morning, he was laughing and joking, leads me to believe she has a degree of confidence that his disappearance took place on Sunday. So this was my note that I had to myself from way back when. And that was because of the emphasis that, she continued to put on how his behavior was Sunday morning. But he allegedly disappeared Monday morning. March 7th was when the landfill in Kentucky was searched. And there's conflicting reports on that because one was, that Sebastian's neighborhood in the beach area, that's where the trash went. And that's why they searched the landfill. And it's because garbage people picked it up and felt their bin was heavier than usual. But there's also another statement that was made that at the construction site, the construction materials are dumped at the landfill in Kentucky, not the regular trash. And that person gave permission. They didn't need a warrant. They gave permission for their waste that was disposed of to be checked because a canine hit on the dumpster at a construction site. So there are two conflicting reports as to why they searched that landfill. One was with permission because a dog hit on a construction dumpster that had been emptied since. And the other statement was that allegedly the trash people thought the bin was heavier than it was. And then March 10th, Seth did an interview with WTVF, revealing his fears for his son, saying that he was not one to wander off, and due to an experience as a young boy, would never go far without shoes on. And that's when he talked about the fire ants and reiterated he does not like to get his feet in the dirt. He likes to have his shoes and socks on. That was March 10th. So, where do things go in Sebastian's case from here? I think it's grim. It's grim. I think that if there's search efforts taking place, they should probably be away from the neighborhood at this point. I've been saying that a really long time. And I believe that there was a lot of forensic evidence that would be helpful that was probably missed. And if there were outside parties involved, the odds are that law enforcement, probably without a search warrant, would not get those parties to willingly have their infotainment systems downloaded, call records downloaded, things like that. I could see others putting up a stink about that and saying, hey, I got an attorney. If you want this, that's fine. Come back with the search warrant. And I don't think that law enforcement had enough for a search warrant to obtain those types of things from parties beyond the parents. My take, my opinion. That's it. Could be wrong. Totally wrong. But as long as we have very limited opportunities to find him, because there's very little search activity going on, and what is extremely small scale with very little to limited technology. And, not a lot of use of things like ground penetrating radar and things like that. I think that the chances of him being found without a party speaking up are slim. And it just continues. I've said this recently. I just continue to feel like after summer is over and Faith goes back to her mom's for the school year, I think that might be the time where we start seeing Chris and Katie consider a move silently as possible. I think that'll be hard to do because if their home is put anywhere, even if it's a quote unquote pocket listing, the neighbors will talk. Maybe they'd be better off trying to rent it out than trying to sell it. But I think they're going to try to move after, unless the heat comes on them really strong, if they try to move and then everybody goes wild about it, I think they're going to try to move. I did hear about the poker party on Friday night that was allegedly at Danny Guy's. And it's alleged that law enforcement took the computer from that home because Sebastian used it. but I think that's about all we really know from that. I don't know that I believe that. I don't believe Sebastian was on the. I don't believe anything related to Sebastian meeting an online stranger. Are there possibilities that things, were said that night? I don't know. I could really just do a lot of speculating on that. But I believe I don't believe that the perfect crime was committed, and it bothers me to my core that they stopped looking, and it bothers me to my core that the odds are we have amateurs who did not commit the perfect crime, and these entities can't get the job done here. I'm praying that one day I eat those words. I don't mind eating crow if it means that there's justice or a missing child is found. So switching gears to elijahvue. Sadly, the searches have slowed in his case now because, I've talked about this. It's summer. It's challenging. There's a lot of people that have jobs that are in the hospitality industry that maybe they were not working in February, March, April, but now this is the only time of the year where they make the majority of their income. So a lot of the volunteers had to get back to that. Their kids are out of school now, so they don't have the ability to search because their kids are at school. Were at school and now they're not. Oh yes, I'm sorry, Ginger. Yes, I do not believe. I never believed that Chris had not been near his home since early February. Absolutely. That was hogwash to me. Garbage. So the searches have slowed. There are some talks about a couple locations. One of them I offered to go, and I will do that if they're trying to gain enough interest. If they can get enough people, they want to do it. I'm just trying to figure out if there's any rhyme or reason to the spot that they want to do. But they got permission from a private party for a parcel of land to be searched. There's another place of interest that I have as well. So hopefully there will be some continued searches because it is entirely possible in Wisconsin to have snow in October. So, time is of the essence. Katrina, elijahvue's mother, is supposed to be making her plea deal on Thursday, the 18th, in the afternoon, late afternoon. I think it's around 4:00. And I first want to say that, at least based off the last hearing, I do not believe that sentencing will be that day. I believe there will be sentencing at a later date. But they have put the order in for a pre-sentence investigation. But I do not believe she's going to be sentenced on the 18th, but we will at least know what the plea is and to what charges she's pleading to and how. So as of right now, she is charged with the 1 count of chronic neglect of a child, which is the Class H felony. That is relating to Elijah. She's then got 2 resisting or obstructing an officer charges, both Class A misdemeanors, and a single count of neglecting a child, which is a Class A misdemeanor. Number one, what the most infuriating outcome for me would be is if they drop the felony charge or reduce the felony charge. A Class H felony, which is what she currently faces for basically putting her child in this unsafe environment with an unsafe person who, quote unquote, lost their child, and there's evidence of physical harm to her child and knowledge that she knew about it. So H is the second to last of the least serious classes of felonies. A Class H felony would face a fine up to $10,000 and or up to 6 years in prison. So to help you understand what Wisconsin typically has fall under Class H felonies, we're talking about like 4th offense OWIs, an OWI with an underage minor, OWI causing injury, false imprisonment, strangulation, felony bail jumping, aggravated battery causing great bodily harm, theft of property, arson with intent to defraud, possession of machine guns, silencers, short barrel rifles or shotguns, possession of armor-piercing bullets during the commission of a crime, pointing a firearm at a police officer, medical responder, or firefighter, possession of a Schedule 4, 1, 2, or 3 narcotic or non-narcotic, or possession of marijuana with the intent to sell. Those are Class H felonies to kind of help you understand what the two of those what that kind of looks like. So max 6 years. She's never been, she's not a prior offender with regards to this. I don't want the felony dropped. She should carry the weight of a felony for the rest of her life, in my opinion. But I do believe the absolute worst case sentence she's going to get in this would be 3 years in prison, credit for time served, and possibility for parole halfway in. That's my guess at this point. I believe they're going to drop the resisting or obstructing officer charges. And I believe that they will probably not drop. I hope they wouldn't drop the misdemeanor neglecting a child, because it involves a child and child neglect. And this is her with regards to her autistic daughter. And but I believe they will likely do a deferred sentence where if she stays out of trouble, she will not be penalized. Max, I would see her getting 9 months, even if she did default on that agreement. So in my mind, her worst case scenario would be her getting 3 years. I would be surprised if they did give her 3 years at this point. But if they did, I would say they probably would give her the opportunity for parole after about a year and a half. And if they give her credit for time served, she might only have to stay in there 6 to 12 more months. And there might be other conditions such as staying sober and things like that. But this is just not a perfect world. This is not a perfect situation. She could get a year in prison and credit for time served. And when all is said and done, she could be out of there in a few months. She might get no time. It's yeah, I would be stunned if there was a plea deal on the table that had her facing more than 3 years. I would be very surprised. And to be very, very clear, she does not, and most likely would not, share any information she would have regarding the whereabouts of Elijah in relation to this plea deal. She is not charged with his disappearance. She does not need to bargain with on something that she is not charged with. So once we see what charges they've dropped, because I can assure you they're gonna probably drop at least at a minimum the obstruction charges, and what she is left with, we'll get a better idea of the sentence. I'm just praying that this judge, who had previously been seeming to take this situation extremely serious, make sure that this is a felony. Because even if he had not disappeared to put your child in an unsafe situation like that, and to share images of your child in the state that Elijah was in, with the bruising and all of those things, and to know of the damage that this man was doing to his, and the water, and if you don't call that a felony, what are you telling these other psychotic parents out there? But as I shared earlier on the community tab, Bryson Miers' parents are out on bond. Their $5,000 bond and a $25,000 surety bond. And that's after showing that you have every intent to flee, hide, and hunker down. And they're already out on bail. This is the price they are putting on our children. We have two situations here where law enforcement stepped in and did everything they could to get the bad people behind bars as quickly as humanly possible. And we'll see what the justice system does with Katrina. But I am very disappointed that they would let the Miers out after I mean, what they did. I mean, they fled. And they showed that they would flee. They have the resources, the means, people to help them, and a cult behind them. There was a recorded phone call between Daniel, the father, and another person that started recording midway, where the dad goes into detail about his son's inappropriate behavior and telling this person that he whooped him like a grown-ass man. He also said that if the family lived in their homeland, Bryson would have been put to death for his acts. Instead, because they live in the United States, Bryson could not be put to death for his actions. The mom told a different story about the injuries, and she said that Bryson got the injuries taking out the trash and walking over to the train tracks near the Logansport property, and was punched by a complete stranger. I love how some of these lies, they just love to talk about taking out the trash. With Bryson's safety in mind, Kristen, the mom, told investigators they decided to move Bryson to his grandma's home in Iowa. Kristen said she removed Bryson from his grandmother's care because she was making decisions that she didn't agree with. After that, they took Bryson to a family member's house nearby where his grandma lived. Court documents say that the mom told investigators the Miers pulled their car over. What? She must have had a baby with her. Court documents say that the mom told investigators that the Miers then pulled their car over on the side of the road so she could breastfeed. During that time, she said police arrived and were looking for Bryson, who was not with them. That's when she said the Miers went back to their home in Logansport. Investigators then spoke with the dad, who allegedly said Bryson was in the car with them when police approached their car. However, he claims police said they were looking for a 14-year-old female, not a male. So Daniel allegedly told police there was nobody in the car that matched that description. BS. They are due back in court. Let's see. Yeah, so that kid said he wasn't angry at his father. He told me he deserved it. It was okay, is what he told his grandmother. And she told him it is not okay to beat children like that, not if they love them. They had to bring in the SWAT team to get these people out of their home. Okay, they had to bring the SWAT team in, and days later, they're out on a $5,000 bond. What? Like, these people have not proven to be dangerous. So is she, at this point, I think is still only the mom, I think is still only charged with obstruction. They were both denied the bond by the Cass County judge, citing him as a flight risk, and there was the no contact order issued. But then on July 8th, their lawyer said denying them bail was unconstitutional under state and federal law, and it called on the judge to set a hearing and set bail. And that's what happened. The jury trial is scheduled at this point for November 4th. But they are still asking for anyone that has any information regarding that incident to call the Indiana State Police, the Peru Post, at 1-800-382-0689. And I would encourage anybody with any information to call. Let's help law enforcement button this case up so tight against these people. Because we don't need people like this walking around and attaching themselves to people or using God as a weapon and brainwashing people and trying to cause any more harm out there, because that's all these people are going to do. And the more and more these people are allowed to go free with their cults, just like with the Lori Vallow case, how many mini-me's did they create? Chad and Lori? How many mini-me's did Ruby Frankie create? When you put your poison out there and you're convincing enough and the vulnerable listen and they take it in. Look, this is when you got to say something. You see things, you got to speak up. You have to say things. If you see it happening in your family, if you see it happening in your neighborhood or your friends, if you see these possible cults popping up or a hint that somebody's going down that road, it's got to be all hands on deck. And it makes me sick to say that, because, Charles Vallow lost his life and he tried to reach out. He tried to get family to help. He tried to get law enforcement to help. And now he's gone. And the kids are gone. Because people don't believe that it can happen to them or what. But you have to take these things seriously when people are having extremist behaviors, extreme conversations, or maybe you pick up, from your kid that their friends, family, these are how these things spread. And where there's one, there are always so many more. And it just cannot be allowed to be tolerated. And that is the same for domestic violence. This young man's face, in so many of these cases we hear of children and teenagers and women and men, and in these situations where there are various forms of domestic violence happening, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, and help abandons. I speak as a living witness proof. Okay. when people encounter somebody around them that is a victim, you would think the natural response would be to cradle them and keep them close. It's not. It is not. And when a victim is often alienated, because that's one of the, it's not always the case, okay? But in many situations, the victim or victims are kept and slowly removed from their family relationships, their friend relationships, and isolated. And you would think that that loud and clear sign would make family and friends fight harder. It doesn't. I don't understand the psychology of that side of it. Someday, maybe I will. It's something that I definitely hope to get educated on, that response. But it is often that people are left to fend for themselves in these situations. And even thereafter, when we're out of the situation, there might, you might have some relationship again with some friends or family, but it'll never be the same for them again, because that abandonment and the detachment is incredibly challenging to move on from and forget. And it can happen to anyone, and no one is immune. So silence isn't helpful. Pulling back is not helpful. And it's scary. And I understand a lot of people probably don't want to be involved in, but please don't call it drama. Because a victim, be it a child, a man, a woman, in those situations, it's not drama to them. That is their life. And if you've not been in it, you can't really imagine it. But it's not drama. And they're likely not exaggerating. They're likely downplaying, because for every bit they tell you, there's a whole lot of bits they don't tell you. So the least we can do for the people that we care about is speak up. And if you don't want to do it anonymously. Something. Because these people are, I mean, this young man is being brainwashed. This woman here, Tara Jane Sullivan, who we've talked about several times, why, she just makes me, she just reminds me of me. And, more and more, I feel like, why can't I find anybody for her? Why can't I find her people? And then, I just keep coming back to, did she have a new life at this point? Maybe a more solitude life, but one that was pretty removed from her friends and family, because maybe in the past she was in a domestic situation and was left to fend for herself. probably got out of it, probably survived, continued on with her life. And then this horrific thing happened that we don't know what it is, but I surely don't believe she left on her own free will, backing through a garage door, chucking her phone and abandoning her car and all these things. And the more and more I thought, like, well, who's just not out there talking and not looking, you know? And I just thought, like, what were the relationships already damaged beyond repair that, you know, they're not looking? And that makes me so sad, because a lot of victims, in the end, they always feel alone, and they always worry they're going to end up alone, and they fear that they're going to probably die alone. And it's tragic. Just so heartbreaking. And all of these faces that I'm looking at, Elijah, Sebastian, Tara, I believe that there are people who could have known or observed things that may have been able to prevent what happened. That could have alerted maybe more people ahead of time, so that the outcome wasn't what it may be. So I hope that some of us can go out into our world and be a little more brave now and then. It's not an easy thing to do. It's the hard thing to do. But I just hope that we can go out there and just be a little more brave for somebody, whether they're directly in our lives or not. And maybe be a little better when we see something that is taboo, or that we're supposed to just not talk about or report. Or maybe you have someone you care about who you have suspicions that there's things going on, and you just never wanted to ask. Maybe it's time to reach out. And if for nothing else, to just say, when you're ready, I'm here. I just hope that as we look at a lot of these cases, that, you know, part of stopping all of the madness that is happening out there in the world means that we have to be better, and we have to believe that we are accountable to others beyond just ourselves and our immediate family. And I personally believe we should be accountable to a lot more than just ourselves and the people around us in our immediate family. So, on that note, it's super late, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Nobody took advantage of hopping on live, so we are lucky we didn't have a poop show. But I will maybe post that link again. Should anybody want to come on and feel comfortable to talk again, you don't have to do video, and you don't even have to use your real name. You guys have watched enough to know how that all works. If you have something you want to say, if you just want to email me and you have something, you know, that you don't want to that you want to talk about, but maybe you don't want it public in chat and you don't want it public conversation, that's okay too. I just want to continue to have a positive space, and I don't want the negative. And so I do appreciate everybody who was able to tune in today, and all of the amazing, some of the best, Dolores, Ginger Girl, Dr. Sue. I bet that Siobhan will watch this on replay. Of course, Miss Melody, can never forget Miss Melody. And the kind comment about my hair being up, because, oh, that was a really hot mess today, but it's hot, like 100 with the heat index, very humid, lots of storms today. Had to sit in the Walmart pickup parking lot for an hour and 20 minutes for groceries because they had a power outage. So yeah, it was absolutely crazy. So yes, thank you guys. I appreciate all of you. And for those that watch it on the replay, I hope to see you guys again soon. I know this was a super late one. And we await to find out what happens Thursday afternoon for Katrinabaur. And again, hoping the felony stays. And if you get a chance, I was trying to put some emphasis on the massive amount of missing persons out of the state of Tennessee. Yes, that little coughing fit seemed to go away after a while there. And so I am feeling so much better than I had been. Thank you. If you go over to the community tab, I shared a few posts with several missing persons flyers. All of those people are still missing. I could have sat all day posting missing flyers for Tennessee alone. That's how many are missing. So, and I was trying to just share their flyer for the awareness of it, but also putting the emphasis on how many people are disappearing in Tennessee. And a lot with special needs as well. It's alarming. So that's all we can do is let people know that we're still paying attention to those things, and hoping that they'll start talking about the obvious problems that are happening in their communities, in the state, and maybe start talking about these children more, because just posting it on your website, to me, when you're talking about a missing child, is insufficient. Insufficient. You got that many missing kids, you should have no problem at all doing like bi-weekly press conferences regarding those missing children. That's my opinion. So with that, I hope to talk to you guys again soon, and we will be back with the update on Katrinabaur's plea deal on Thursday, unless there is some form of breaking news in any of our cases. And hopefully we will not have any news of any other big case. These are plenty. So thank you all for tuning in, and I believe I will be talking to you Thursday. Have a great evening.